Many people talk about reaching their first 100K in financial assets, but not many people go into detail about the timeline and how long it took to get there. In this video, I will be sharing the timeline on how I got from $0 to $100,000. Welcome to my channel. On this channel, we talk about freedom as it relates to our finances, travel, and mindset. If you are new here, please click the like button and subscribe if you like conversations about freedom and how you can attain more freedom in your life. All right, we are going to jump right into it, guys. So my savings journey, it was not a fast one by any means. It took me a while to learn everything that I needed to learn in order to get me to where I am right now. And there were periods where my savings account expedited really quickly, but there were also periods where my savings was a very slow and challenging process. So I'm going to highlight those now. I'm going to discuss a little bit about what those years looked like for me in my savings journey. So I will start around 2009. So in 2009, I was in high school. At this time, I was first introduced to savings. My mother was the first person who introduced me to savings, and she started her introduction around savings with a piggy bank. So I used to have this like huge 7-Up bottle that probably reached to about my hips at the time. But my mom would influence me to, every time you got spare change in the form of toonies and loonies in Canada here, to put that into the piggy bank. It wasn't a lot of money. I think after a couple years, we ended up opening up that piggy bank and there was like $1,000 in it. And I ended up spending it on a trip to Portugal a couple years later, but that's where I first learned about saving. And it wasn't anything that was too serious at the time. This was just more so my early exposure to what savings felt like. I want to say around 2010/11 is when I opened up my first bank account. And now that I had this bank account, I used to do paper route at this time. So I used to deliver newspapers to people's house, and every weekend, I think I would get like $100 or something. So at this time now, I would gain my $100 and I had my bank account now, and I would put that money into my savings account. I did that for a couple years throughout the later part of high school. And then I had a couple other odd jobs like call centers, things like that. And I want to say around like 2012, I had about $5,000 to $12,000 saved by the time we hit 2012. This included money that I had in my piggy banks that I eventually transferred into my account, and money that I had gained through jobs that I would do on the side, like my paper route and other odd jobs that I did in my late teens. So now in about 2013, this is when I got my first experience with investing. So my mom told me that I should start investing, and she didn't really explain what it was like. I don't think she really knew much about it, but I think that she knew that it helped her, and she saw that her account was increasing through investing. So she told me that I should start a mutual funds. And in this mutual fund, she was the first person that initiated the process of automated investing for me. So what that looked like was, initially I started with putting away $50 per month into a investment account in a mutual fund. And as time went by, I want to say around 3 years later, I started putting $100 a month. And the money wasn't really accessible to me. It was in one of those mutual funds where you do it through like an account manager, and it's not really accessible to you. Essentially just had $50 to $100 being deducted from my account every month for about 10 years, I would say. So this money was continuously being deducted for 10 years. By the time I considered taking it out in around 2021 to 2022, that account had about $17,000 saved. It was honestly a combination of the automated savings and investing that I was doing with the $50 to $100 per month. And also my portfolio had increased because the money was being invested. So honestly, that was my first exposure to investing. I did not really know what it was. It was a very hands-off approach, but all I knew is I started with nothing. And after 10 years, I had like $17,000 saved. During that time between 2013 to 2021, I was also doing my own side savings. So while I had that $100 or $50 going into that investment account every single month for that 10-year period, I was also working odd jobs. I was in school at the time, so I was doing like serving, casual jobs, picking up jobs through the summer camp, things like that. So I would always put money away in addition to what was being put into that savings account. After doing a bunch of odd jobs and saving up that money, by 2021, I had about $50,000. So that included the $18,000 that was in the mutual funds account that I shared initially, and about $20,000 to $30,000 that was accumulated by way of just saving across the 10 years. In 2022, I felt like my knowledge around investing had improved. I felt a little bit more competent and more skilled, and I had learned about mutual funds, and I was told that mutual funds are a very high fee method of investing. So at that point, I wanted to sell my investments with the mutual funds and then consolidate my investments into one account. So now with $50,000 to my name, I opened up Wealthsimple and I started self-directed investing. Actually, before that, I opened up TD Investing and I invested in this random investment. It was a stock, and I can't even repeat to you or tell you what I was investing in, but I was told by my sister that it was, invest in this now, put $1,000 in, your money is going to skyrocket. And literally I put my $1,000 in, I checked it like a few months later and it was at 300 and I got scared. So I sold it at a $700 loss and got my 300 back. And I was like, okay, that was not a good investment choice. After doing that with TD Investing, I ended up, learning a bit more about investing. And then I opened up a Wealthsimple account where I tried self-directed investing again. However, this time I decided that I wanted to do more ETFs at this time and invest in stocks and companies that I knew had a better reputation behind them and a better history when it came to their profitability. So when I opened my Wealthsimple account in about 2021 to 2022, I started by investing in Amazon. It was a company that I frequently used and it looked like it had a good history. Now Amazon is over $200 per share. So yeah, I think I made a good choice with that, but I started off investing in Amazon. I did not put the whole $50K that I had into Amazon because I was scared of investing based on my experience with TD investing and just not being that confident or competent around investing overall. But eventually I started putting, a little $50 here, $100 here. So I started increasing my investment account. And then I started investing in other things like Enbridge and just doing mostly stock heavy investing because I wasn't as sure about ETFs as yet. So I started initially with stocks and then later transitioned into ETFs. So I started taking the $50K that I had and slowly putting it into Wealthsimple and just practicing investing with lower amounts before I went hardcore with it. Now from 2022 to 2024, this is when I really went hard with my investments. So I've shared on this channel before that I got a job as a teacher in a remote community where the pay was substantially more than what is offered for teachers in my home city. So I moved and relocated closer to that community, and there I worked for 3 years and I was able to save roughly $25,000 to $30,000 per year while working at that job. So from the period of time between about 2022 to 2024, I saved $25,000 to $30,000 each year, which then brought me up to $100,000. So in September of 2024, I hit $100,000 in my account. And it's crazy because the majority of my money, pretty much half of the $100,000 was saved within a 2-year period. And the other half took me about like 10 years. It's crazy how increasing your income can have such a significant impact on your savings rate and your ability to reach your savings goal. And in addition to that, it's so interesting how when you're investing, you are able to reach your savings goal much faster, because as I increased the amount of money that I had, I started to put more and more into investment rather than me having to rely solely on saving each and every dollar. So in 2025, I continued to save, and then I eventually quit my job and I started to embark on my freedom era starting in November of 2025. Now that it's 2026, I'm in my freedom era. I'm taking my year off to enjoy, to build my business, to build my YouTube, and to share everything I know about saving and investing with you guys. Overall, the process of saving up to 100K was not an easy one. There was a lot to learn. There were a lot of ups and downs. There were a lot of sacrifices, but it was totally worth it. I learned a lot in the process, and yeah, I'm excited to work towards 200K. I feel like the process to get to 200K is going to be so much faster this time because I actually have the knowledge and the skill set that I acquired over the last 12 years of my life. And I'm ready to utilize this knowledge and this skill set to reach my goal much faster than I did before. All right, guys, thank you so much for watching. Peace.